why exactly would you want to reshape your data? The primary reason is if you have data where a discrete event is separated into multiple rows. Using data reshaping methods, you can reconstitute the information from a single event into one row and have each version of the event be coded as a column variable rather than multiple separate rows.
So I'm new to this entire coding thing, but I hear that like packages and libraries are important. Could you tell us which ones we'll be needing for this?
Well, that's a great question. For reshaping our data, we want two libraries, tidyverse and reshape2. So go on ahead and install these libraries now.
And we'll bring you more on how to reshape your data from wide to long after the break. Have you ever wanted to sow the fields of Carthage and or the Confederate States of America with salt? Has Britain ever occupied and or colonized your nation? Well, you may be interested in my brand new product, March to the Sea Salt, patent pending. Wait, Jimmy, is that a bag? Get a camera on that. Oh god. And that's how you make 1200 bioluminescent, incandescent, LED enabled, Bluetooth enabled, Wi-Fi 7, 5G LTE, 4K 120 FPS HDMI vanilla scented candles.
So, why exactly would you want to reshape your data? Well, let's say that you have data where a discrete event is separated into multiple rows. By reshaping it, we can reconstitute all of these rows into a single row, where that row is just the single discrete event, and what was originally separating that event into multiple rows is represented as column variables. So let's take this data set as an example. So from looking at this, we see that, for example, Morning Consult, this entire row shares poll IDs. Well, this row and then this row. So these are two separate polls that are separated out into many rows. So this is a discrete event, and then this is another discrete event. And so the reason this is happening is if we go on over here, we see that it's looking at the candidates. Okay, so so for each candidate, it has a percentage row that tells us what percentage of those people supported that candidate in that poll, and it separates them out into a row. Now, if we wanted to make a line chart, for example, of support by poll over time, right, then it would be easier if we had columns where it's Trump column and it's the percentage of Trump, and then DeSantis, and then Haley, etc., right? So we can, firstly, downsize our data set, and then we will pivot, okay? So here, we tell it where to get the names from. So we have a vector called candidate underscore name, and it's going to pull the names from that. And then we want it to combine the percentages, right? It's going to combine the rows based off of the percentages. Okay, so let's just run this code really quickly, and then we'll compare. Okay, and now what we see is each poll is a single row, right? Instead of taking up 3 or 4 rows, each poll is a single row. And then over here, we see the percentage. Okay, so Trump 42, DeSantis 15, Haley 3, etc.
and we'll bring you more on how to reshape your data from wide to long after the break.
I'm looking at massive gridlock right now. Parked cars as far as the eye can see. I'm seeing 10, 15, maybe 30 lanes of parked cars. This is insane. That's right, bumper to bumper traffic. I hope you don't have to get anywhere quickly tonight. Wait, is that a bat?
Hit me. I'll raise 10,000.
Hit me. I raised 10,000. All in.
So, I've shown you how to reshape your data one way, from long to wide, and highlighted why you might want to do this, primarily for making graphs. If we need to go back to the original format of the table, we could simply just use our data underscore small. That's already in long format. But for our data underscore wide, we probably did some data cleaning to make those graphs, and we'll want to keep that, right? We may have recoded NA values or imputed data, and we want to keep those changes possibly, right? And so to do that, it might just be faster to pivot back into a long data set. To facilitate this, we're going to use the reshape to melt function. So we specify what dataset we're going to be working from, our wide dataset. And then we tell it what columns it's going to keep. And then here we tell it what values of the column it's not keeping it's going to separate out into rows. Because again, it's kind of making dummy variables, right? So it's going to have the percentage column again, but it's not going to tell us exactly what candidate, right? Each row is going to be its own candidate. And so it'll be like a dummy variable. And when we run this, we get back to our pretty similar to our original data set.
And now, the weather. Now we let this cool for 45 minutes. This is when I would like to find myself a little snack. Thankfully, we already have one prepared.
And now I've shown you how to reshape your data, going from long to wide and wide to long. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for that, Cody. Food for thought. Next up, is your puppy plotting your downfall? More on that after the... Oh god.
All right, you guys. They've gone now.